Welcome to the Speak by Design podcast, where we study personal style, message structure, and message strategy so you can become a consistently compelling force. Let's dig in. This is lesson 16. We just worked on getting clear and concise, and this segues very gently into the next big topic of how to become an expert at articulating vision. And that's not just articulating a vision of where we think we'll be in the future, where we will be in the future. It is also the strategy of how we will get there in the future. It begins first with vision, and you want people to buy into that before you give the plan of how we will get there. Often vision and strategy are combined into one beautiful 7 to 10 minute message. And if you're working on something like this that you will articulate to your board, that's exactly how you should build it. Build it in a beautiful 7 to 10 minute version. Make sure that it is known inside and out so that if you get interrupted or you need to make this more of a dialogue, it will be easy for you to do so. Okay, but now, why is this difficult? Well, for one, we're not taught to speak this way because we're taught to speak with beginning, middle, end, and starting at the beginning of time and going sequentially through time. But when you're articulating a vision, you begin first with the future. And that is the big takeaway from today is begin with the future. Sometimes you hear people say begin with the end. That's the same idea. Now, this is a vicious cycle that we see where the leader gets up in front of everybody and says, here's the vision and here's the strategy for how we'll achieve that vision. And nothing happens. And nobody takes action. There's no follow through, and people start getting confused. The leader can tell that people are getting confused, and the leader starts over explaining and improving the idea. But in improving the idea, it starts to sound like it's changing. And then the listeners, the entire organization sometimes can get confused because they think the strategy is changing and they're afraid to take action until that strategy feels set and established. They're actually waiting to hear that message delivered consistently a few times. So here's the takeaway in that. Leaders need to repeat the same message multiple times because the organization needs to hear it, the same content in different formats and sometimes from different voices. So if the CEO says it and then your team leader says it and then a peer says it and it's all the same, then you can start to believe, okay, this is the strategy. I can start taking action. It is set and it's not going to change. People will complain that their leaders keep changing their minds and that decisions aren't easily made and people are not in alignment. It is critical that the leadership team has prepared this message together and that they've given each other feedback and they've improved it to such a level that it is going to resonate with everybody in the entire organization. And if you've thoughtfully done that as a team, everybody is marching in the same direction and the messages are perfectly aligned. They still sound unique to that person's functional role, but they are at the core aligned with one another. And that takes practice and time and discussion. You can't prepare these vision messages in a vacuum and rely on one person to communicate all of it. We have a course for management teams that is all about how to put together this vision and strategy message. And it begins with first having the most senior leader build the message by themselves and then socialize it with the direct reports and maybe even one more level down, but at least the direct reports, which would be the management team. And there it is rehearsing and getting feedback. And every single person on that management team practices delivering that message. And then you decide who are going to be the people who speak this throughout the organization and what is going to be our communication plan. And that might require making videos, having a town hall, bringing people together on a webinar, writing some beautiful email messages around the vision and strategy. It could be a lot of creativity, getting people together in small cohorts and having them workshop the strategy and coming up with their concrete plans of how they're going to achieve the results that you're looking for. There are 5 areas for you to watch out for, and these are 5 common problems with vision messages. So the first is just a lack of context. People need to understand, why are we changing? Because likely you have delivered a strategy statement in the past that everybody bought into, and they may be so committed to that former strategy, that former vision, that they don't believe they need a new vision. Something must cause the need for the new strategy, and make sure that that's evidence-based and make it as concrete as possible. Maybe it is that a new competitor has come into the landscape, or maybe there has been a shrink in the market toward one of your offerings, but another offering is expanding. And if that's the case, make sure you have numbers and data that explain and credentialize that for people. So context is going to be really important. Why are we changing? And it can be because of outside forces or internal forces. Internal forces could be maybe somebody has left the organization, a key member, or maybe you all have discovered something internally, a new innovation, and you want to be the very first to get it out into the market, and time is of the essence. So give that context. Second thing is, often in these messages, people give way too much information. They're excited to share how we're going to do this and the plan, and they get into the plan too fast and they give way too many details. When you get to the plan section of this message, see if you can articulate your plan the first time to your people by focusing on priorities rather than tasks. So an example of that would be, let's say the priorities are these are our top 3 priorities. Number 1, we are going to invest in growth, or maybe we're going to invest in creativity. And then number 2, we're going to embrace technology. And number 3, we're going to grow geographically. Having those top 3 priorities well outlined and concise like that makes it crystal clear for people what they should be focusing on. And notice all 3 of those are things that could touch everybody in the organization, whether you're in compliance or finance or sales or operations, can support embracing technology, investing in growth and geographic expansion. All of that can be something that the entire organization unites around. If you have a priority that only targets one functional area, it doesn't really belong in the overall strategy message. Now, if you're the IT leader articulating the IT strategy to your IT team, perhaps then you could go more focused on IT. But if there's even one person from the business who's joining that meeting, it sounds much better to do it from a business perspective versus an IT perspective. Okay, now a third problem is the lack of follow through. So imagine you've delivered this beautiful 10-minute strategy, but then they never hear it talked about again. It is not a one and done. It has to be the situation where you deliver this message, and then within a couple of days, they receive an email follow-up that summarizes what you said, or the video is sent to everyone with a message of what the takeaways are from message you delivered. People need to see action happen after that meeting. It is always best to present these messages live first and then follow up with something written. Sometimes people send an email preview up front of here's what we're going to talk about. Then they have the live meeting and take questions, and then they send another follow up, and that works well too. The fourth problem we see is the inconsistency, that the leader presents an idea, and then the second time everybody hears about it, it has already changed. That's a problem. If those top 3 priorities that you share have changed and now there are 5 priorities, or the order has changed, or they sound different in any way, that puts the entire initiative and strategy at risk because it doesn't sound like it is established yet. Make sure that even the order in which you talk about the priorities stays the same. Use the same words on purpose. Don't try to pull out the thesaurus and make it sound fancy. Simple, plain English is great for this. And remember, if you're in a global organization and everybody is hearing this in English, it is helpful if you are not changing the words for that reason as well. Now, the last problem we see is more interesting. It is that in that 10-minute message, there is no mention of who's going to own what, or it sounds like one person is going to be in charge of all of this. Delegation is key. In the message, you want to make it clear tactically which parts of the organization are going to own these initiatives. And if you're in a smaller organization or you're doing this at the team level, you may even want to say the names of the people who will be owning pieces going forward. If you don't want to put that in your beautiful 7 to 10 minute vision message, you could put that in the email that you send people afterwards. Go ahead and start delegating to individuals who are going to carry this effort forward, who are going to own it and champion it in the next phase. And that helps them feel empowered to start pulling people together and creating the plans for each individual or the smaller teams involved. Now let's talk about the actual message. When you are putting together a vision message, begin with where do you see people in the future at the most expansive level that is possible for you to see. Now, this could be, I'm going to give you some examples of things that companies have used very publicly for vision statements. And if you've got a great branding department and they've already come up with taglines, see if you can use the words that are in your tagline to help you get there. There may be some messages from other senior leaders at the organization. If you're not the CEO and you have a CEO who's speaking about vision quite a bit, use their words. Quote them back to the rest of the organization. That highlights consistency right there. All right, so the first part of your message, step 1, is talking about the reality of the situation. What is good and what is not good about where we are today, where we are presently? And perhaps that's going to require you to talk about the past, but I wouldn't belabor the past. Focus more on where you are today and the good and the not so good about that. In this section, you might give numbers, you might tell a story, you are introducing some fear into the equation because we want to focus the listeners on the pain that needs to be solved with the new strategy. So after you get there, after you've covered where we are today, the second phase is the aspiration. And this is the big, beautiful future that you see. And I'm going to read you some vision statements that other companies have used. So the first one comes from Nike, and this was years ago. Their vision statement was to crush Adidas. And that sounds very athletic, competitive, very true to Nike's values around competition and also their desire to dominate. And imagine the strategies that went underneath that vision statement. They would be things around how to increase market share, how to adjust pricing, how to be better in marketing. They could hit so many different functional areas of the business with that one vision statement. Here's another one from Coca-Cola. Put a Coke within the reach of every human being on the planet. So that doesn't have a dollar amount attached to it, but it does give us a visual of seeing a can of Coca-Cola in the hand of every human being on the planet. Very expansive. Walmart at one point had the vision statement with a dollar amount, become a $125 billion company. Now, the money in the vision statement is very powerful when speaking to the board, when speaking to investors. So you've talked about the reality of the situation, where we are, the good and the bad of it, and now how we're going to change and what we want to achieve together. This section, the aspiration, is the big, beautiful, thrilling, positive, hopeful, excited section of the message. And it can include numbers around dollar amounts, but it does not have to. It's nice if it has an element of fun to it so that you can more naturally be expressive and excited while speaking about this. Now, the third section, we call it the battle. And in the battle, this is where you talk about what's going to be hard and why this hasn't naturally fallen into place in the past. So battle could be acknowledging that we have tried this before and it didn't work, but here's why it will work. It could also be acknowledging that there is competition in this space. It could also be acknowledging that we've never done this before and it's not going to be a piece of cake. We will experience mistakes and setbacks, and we should all expect that. The battle section is when you share why this is so meaningful, that it's what we need to do for our end users, for our communities, for our teams, for our organization, for our shareholders, for each other, and for ourselves. So the battle section is the most textured piece, and it does include an element of skepticism because you know your audience. If you didn't go through a degree of skepticism in this message, it sounds like too much sunshine. This section here is what makes your entire message credible. The battle section does share risk and deep meaning to why we want to do this. Now, the fourth section is the plan. And I recommend that you make this as simple as possible by sharing your top 3 priorities. Those 3 things could be 1, invest in creativity. Number 2, grow globally. Number 3, embrace technology. Now, I kept those really simple. I like you simply stating them and then explaining each one so that you've given the sound bites and you have made them repeatable sound bites. They're concise enough that they would fit on a t-shirt, on a mug. If you had to make merchandise around your top 3 priorities, it should be easy. If they're incredibly long and lengthy, no one will remember them. But you do have to explain them because if you say embrace technology, what the heck does that mean? You've got to explain that specifically you mean embracing generative AI in our operations, in our supply chain management, being as precise as possible on that. Now, that is in the plan section. If you're doing this for your team and your team is smaller, you might actually say the names of the people in the room who will be owning different pieces of that plan. If this is in a town hall, you do not need to name people. You might talk about functional areas broadly. it is not critical or necessary for you to do so. It might start helping with the delegation, though. Now, the last section is what we call the promise. And it is a promise that the leader makes to the room and that you also ask the room to promise in return. And you could do it either way first. I often begin it like this, where I say, all right, everyone, here's what I need you to promise is that we will talk to one another. We will escalate issues as they arise. We will celebrate and we will move as swiftly as possible, minimizing the noise so that we prioritize this plan above all else. And in return, I promise to do the same, matching your enthusiasm, keeping my door open, helping you be successful in this. And that is the way we achieve these goals. We do it together. Let's pause and reflect on all of this. What we talked about today were the principles in how you put together a great vision and strategy for people. And it's principles like make sure you give context, not too much detail. Make sure that it's clear what the plan is and that you stay consistent with it and that you follow through. It's not a one and done. You deliver the message once and you're prepared to deliver it again and again and in the same way. And that you also delegate delivering this message to other team members so that they're not just hearing the message from you, they're hearing it from other voices. And then I shared the sections, the 5 sections of a beautiful vision: reality, aspiration, battle, plan, promise. And when you put those ingredients together, it's an unforgettable vision. It's a clear strategy, and people will start to align, and it will be so much easier for them to take actions on that. It is my wish for all of you that the next vision and strategy you describe is your very, very best. Have a great rest of your day. I look forward to the next lesson. If you are enjoying all of these lessons, but now you're hungering to turn all of this into skills and habits that make this work intuitive and natural so that you don't have to think about it, then you want to join Speak by Design University. That's our coaching program that gives you private coaching, group coaching with me, group training, self-paced learning, as well as exceptional networking with other people like you. This program is for managers and above, people whose careers are on fire and they're looking to hit their next level and they want to do that sooner rather than later. Check it out at speakbydesign.com/join. That's speakbydesign.com/join, and you can start with us at the 1st of next month. We hope to see you there.